For the community who are listening, some councillors are participating at the meeting remotely. The current public health places certain restrictions on gatherings in indoor areas. Accordingly, some councillors are not physically present in the chamber tonight, and we are participating via audio visual link as approved by the changes to local government legislation. Members of the public that have registered to speak by audio visual link on the agenda items are asked to keep their microphones muted and a video off until I invite you to speak. If you're speaking by phone, you'll be contacted just before your item. Just before I invite you to speak. As we're now in regulated period leading up to elections, I remind all speakers they are not to make reference directly or indirectly to election, any candidate or party of elections, or make comment that may be taken as related to an election of any candidate. Speakers will be disconnected immediately. This is a requirement if this requirement is breached. Now, I now ask councillors to reserve the following online meeting. 1, mute the microphone while not speaking. Have your camera turned on. Use the hand icon from the tap toolbar to indicate you wish to speak, as I will determine the speaking order based on the hand icons I can see. Announce your name when speaking. Ensure your microphone and cameras are not picking up any background noise and visual distractions. To ensure this meeting runs smoothly and the public clearly, all speakers were assisted by muting your microphones should you forget to do so. I remind you that the video recording of this official record of council may be made available to persons requesting in accordance with the Freedom of Information legislation outlined in the Government Information Public Access 2009. No other recordings are permitted. Acknowledgement of country. Bayside Council respects the traditional custodians of the land, elders past and present and emerging on which this meeting takes place, and acknowledges the Gringilli and the Bridgilli clans of the Eora Nation. Ladies and gentlemen, councillors, I please ask that you stand. We have Pastor Andrew Harper, Council's chaplain, to open the meeting.
God, we just begin tonight by acknowledging, God, your hope for our nation, for our city, God, and we thank you, God, for the incredible story of little Cleo Godsmith. God, we just thank you for the signal of hope and the miracle of that beautiful story, God, that we just believe to sweep across our nation, God, that we would see our nation and in our city in particular just emerge from this pandemic, God, with a new lease of life, God, for vision to see businesses flourish, for families to flourish, for us to find health and well-being, God. And God, I just pray and continue to pray for people's health and their well-being in this time. And for anyone that's affected throughout this pandemic, God, that you would just help them, enable them, God, whether they're doing it tough through finances and other means emotionally. God, we just pray, Father God, that you would just bless them and look after them in this season. And God, I just pray for tonight's meeting that, that God, your wisdom would reign in every decision made in your mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Councillors, I'm just going to read out the councillors' names for the roll call. Councillor Curry is present. Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Sedrak.
Yeah.
Councillor Ibrahim. Councillor Naji. Councillor Ratnasadi. Councillor Collegius.
Yeah.
Councillor Souness is here. Councillor Barlow. Councillor Bezic.
Present.
Councillor McDonald.
Present.
Councillor McDougall.
Present.
And we have two apologies, Councillor Poulos and Councillor Awada. If someone can move that these apologies be accepted. Councillor Souness, second by Councillor Naji. I'll put it all in favour side. Those against carried. I do have to do this procedural matter motion. Oh, councillors, just have to do a procedural motion that Councillor Sedrak is off-site, and I ask that we accept him to be allowed to be at the meeting off-site. If I can someone move, Councillor Collegius, seconded by Councillor Souness. Okay, yeah, I'll put it all in favour as aye. Okay, Councillor Sedrak, it was a close vote. You were able to participate. Yeah. Okay. Disclosure of interest, councillors. Councillor Souness.
Thank you, Mr. Item 8.6. I've declared this in the past. I was a former member of a HEPA, I believe. I'm not sure because the lists aren't quite clear at the moment. But I will be staying in the chamber to vote on this. I have no pecuniary interest whatsoever in the matter. Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Any others? Councillor Petros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The same item, non-pecuniary, less than significant, former member of a HEPA.
Okay. Councillor McDougall.
Item 8.4, I won't be participating or voting due to my membership of the planning panel, but I'm not conflicted. Right.
Any others? Oh. Councillor Ibrahim.
Traffic Committee, Mr. Mayor, BTC 21.116.
Was that 21?
21.116.
Yep.
I'll call it significant on the basis that my daughters attend Al Zahra College and this is parking outside the school.
All right, thank you. Okay, I've got Councillor Naji.
But anyway, 8.4 on the basis, I won't be participating on the basis that I am a member of the panel, of the planning panel, regional planning panel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got three items, councillors. 8.2, which is the amendment to the Bayside Local Environmental Plan 2021. I've declared a pecuniary interest as my family owned property in the Rockdale CBD. I received no financial returns. As traditionally, I always declare anything with the town centre, so I won't be participating in the chamber when this item is debated. On 8.4, which I've previously declared, I was present at a social function which was sponsored by the applicant, so again, I won't be participating in the debate. And then on 8.8 is again, as 8.4, it's less significant, but I won't be participating in the debate. My son plays for Rockdale Ellington, the junior soccer team. I have no role, I love the sport, but I have no role in the committee. I'm not an active member of the club, so I will not be participating in that debate on 8.8. Anyone else? If not, I've someone moved that they be accepted. Councillor Souness, seconded by Councillor Naji. I'll put it all in favour side. Let's get no declare carried. In relation to 8.4, we might have to call on Councillor McDonald to chair the meeting on 8.4. As Councillor McDougall and Naji won't be anything, so if you don't mind when that one comes up. We'll go on to public forum, councillors. And we'll go to the first item is the audited general purpose financial statement. We have Jennifer. Jennifer's actually still overseas. So I'd like to invite her to do her presentation. Jennifer, not sure what time it is there, but please, good morning or good evening.
Thanks, Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I apologise for not being able to attend in person. It is the morning here. It's quite cold. It's the first winter morning. As you know, I'm one of the Australians stuck overseas. So there is a Qantas flight with my name on it now, but I couldn't quite make it back this evening. So I'll be speaking in relation to item 8.1, the draft general purpose financial statements and statement by councillors and management on behalf of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee, which includes 4 independent external members as well as 2 councillors. So our present committee first convened in May 2017, and our committee charter details our responsibilities in relation to external financial reporting and accountability, which include to satisfy ourselves that the annual financial reports comply with the applicable Australian accounting standards and are supported by appropriate management sign-off on the statements, as well as the adequacy of internal controls. We're also required to provide input and feedback on the audit coverage proposed by external audit, review the audit reports and opinions, and monitor the implementation of audit recommendations by management. Since our first meeting in 2017, a significant proportion of the committee's time has been devoted to resolving multiple issues stemming from the amalgamation of the former Rockdale Council and City of Botany Bay in 2016. These issues drove a disclaimer of opinion from the external auditor, the New South Wales Audit Office. Last year, we achieved an important milestone and were able to present the audited 2019-20 financial statement on schedule with an unmodified opinion. This year, we're pleased that the results have continued to build on the strong foundations established last year. The committee has received regular progress reports from Council's management in respect of the 2020-21 financial statements, and the Audit Office has provided briefings to our committee meetings in May and August. At our October meeting, the committee considered the draft engagement closing report for the 2021 audit, which indicated that the auditors foresaw an unmodified opinion. Our committee therefore recommended that the draft statements be tabled at this council meeting for the council to resolve to sign the statement by councillors and management. The past year has been very challenging for all councils across the state due to the pandemic, and Bayside has been particularly affected as an LGA area of concern. In spite of these challenges, Bayside has achieved a positive operating surplus from continuing operations, and whilst the net operating result before capital grants and contributions is a small deficit, it's important to note that this is largely driven by accounting treatment, so irregular non-cash related expenditure, which is associated with asset revaluations and disposals and increased depreciation expense. In terms of cash and investments, Council maintains one of the healthiest cash and investment portfolios in the state. The Council has exceeded 4 of the 6 OLG benchmarks, demonstrating its strong financial position in difficult circumstances. The committee would like to extend our thanks to Council management and staff, as well as the Audit Office for their efforts in relation to the financial statements through this difficult year. And finally, our committee will hold our final meeting later this month in line with the end of the council term. And on behalf of the committee, I'd like to express our appreciation to have served in this role for the Bayside community over the past 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next speaker we have is Karen Taylor, Director of Financial Audit, New South Wales Audit Office. Hi, Karen.
Thanks, Mayor. So good evening to you and the Deputy Mayor and councillors, and thank you for inviting me to present the report on the conduct of the audit for Bayside Council's 30 June 2021 financial report. This year, we've all continued to respond to the challenges of COVID-19. It's been impressive to see how councils have adjusted to continue to deliver essential services and keep operations going. From the finance and audit perspective, that has meant working remotely to complete the audit. We don't underestimate how challenging this has been and acknowledge how hard it has been for many of your staff. So in this context, we'd like to thank Council for how you've worked to support the audit process despite the impacts of COVID-19 on your staff working remotely in lockdown with homeschooling and carers' responsibilities. Oh, having a technical issue. Before I'm getting to the report on the conduct, I'll just briefly focus on the what the Auditor General's future program looks like. In July 2021, the Auditor General released her annual work program detailing financial and performance audit areas of focus for the year ahead. councils continue to manage and respond to ongoing impacts of natural disasters and COVID-19, and this year's program focuses on government's response to emergencies. Cybersecurity also remains a key risk. The program is broken into response, recovery, and impact phases. It is flexible so we can adjust to emerging issues, specific requests, or areas of significant public interest. So in the local government space, the upcoming performance audits include business continuity and service planning, integrity of grants administration. They're currently in progress. And then 4 performance audits planned for the coming year are effectiveness of financial management and governance in councils, development assessment processes in local councils assessment stage, coastal management reforms, and effectiveness of local government regulation and support, which focuses on the Department of Planning, Infrastructure and Environment as the regulator for local government and the key advisor to the Minister. Other performance audits on New South Wales government departments that may be of council's interest is an audit on the e-planning portal and also on building regulation responding to combustible external cladding. So we also issue a financial audit report to Parliament on the 2020-21 financial audits. We continue to report key findings from these audits and themes from our management letter. Historically, they have been prominent in the areas of asset management, information technology, and financial reporting. I think the findings will be quite similar this year. The focus of this report is on the audit results and key audit findings, including cybersecurity risk, IT environment, and progress on councils establishing audit risk and improvement committees and internal audit functions. Whilst these audit risk and improvement committees and internal audit is not required by OLG until June or until 2022, your council has already established these entities, so that's a good head start. Now to the report on the conduct of the audit. The Office of Local Government Code sets out what the report has to cover. So we've completed our audit of the general and special purpose financial statements and relevant permissible income schedule. And as Jennifer foreshadowed, pleased to report that we'll be issuing a clean, or we already have issued a clean audit opinion on council's financial statements, which means the financial statements don't contain any material errors and present fairly. As you can see in note 6.4-1 of the financial statements, there are 6 performance indicators that are set by the Office of Local Government. Your council has met 4 of the 6 performance ratios this year. The operating performance ratio was not met, which was mainly due to $3.2 million increase in depreciation and a $4.1 million decrease in interest revenue. The other ratio that's not met is the rates outstanding ratio. For metropolitan councils, it assesses the impact of uncollected rates and annual charges on councils' liquidity and the adequacy of debt recovery efforts. The benchmark to be within is 5%. Bayside has actually slowly creeped up over the last 3 years, so it should be an area of focus. Then if we take you to the income statement, your rates and annual charges revenue increased by 3.9 million to 128.2 million. This is primarily due to increase in annual charges and the approved rate peg of 2.6%. Grants and contributions revenue decreased by 14.3%, mainly due to $10.5 million decrease in developer contributions. The operating result for the year was $18.5 million. This was $29 million lower than last year. As Jennifer foreshadowed, this has been impacted by some accounting entries, such as a $10.9 million decrement for revaluation of buildings, a $3.9 million loss on disposal of assets, and as well the increase in depreciation. You also had a decrease in grants and contributions revenue as foreshadowed, and a decrease in interest and income, which all contributed to the $29 million decrement, or not a decrement, decrease from last year. But your cash position has increased from $437.4 million to $448.4 million. Of this, about $300 million is restricted for developer contributions, and overall there's $368.8 million externally restricted funds and $71.9 million internally restricted funds. These positive cash levels help you have a good result for your unrestricted cash ratio, current ratio, your debt service current ratio, and your cash expense cover ratio, which all significantly exceed the benchmark. Then in your infrastructure, property, plant and equipment, overall, you had $26.5 million spent on renewals of assets in Bayside Council this year. $6.6 million was on road renewals. You also had asset additions of $21.7 million. This included $6.1 million on buildings and $2.9 million on footpaths. Overall, the council has reported sound financial results. An increase on debt recovery and cost control will help you meet all 6 reported ratios going forward. I'd like to thank council's finance team for their professionalism and cooperation during the conduct of the audit. Also thank the Risk and Audit Committee chaired by Jennifer Whitten with councillor members. They provide oversight of the audit and the financial reporting process. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor, any questions? No. If not, thank you. Councillors, there's an officer's recommendation. If someone could move it.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll move the officer's recommendation.
And seconded by Councillor Barlow.
I'm not going to recap what the speakers have spoken, Mr Mayor, but I just want to say that under the circumstances and the impact of COVID-19, it's been nearly 2 years, and I've got to congratulate this organisation for dealing with this impact and putting us in a really a stable financial situation. And I must congratulate every department, from services to compliance to planning, and especially the financial. Mr Memo has done a great, magnificent job, him and his team, in the financial department, giving us great analysis all the way. And I've just got to say that this is our last council meeting, and I, as a councillor, is so proud to have been part of this organisation that have dealt with this COVID-19 impact for the last 2 years. I'm proud to be associated with this council. I'm proud to have represented my community, and congratulations again. Headed, of course, by the GM. Great job, well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Najee. If any other speakers, Councillor Barlow.
Look, yes, I'd like to congratulate the staff and everyone that's been involved in the last 4 years of finances. I believe I remember our first audit statement, no one would sign it. I volunteered and signed it because we actually couldn't balance the books at that stage. And to have 2 unqualified audit opinions in 2 rows is brilliant. And I think everyone here should really understand that is fantastic. And the other person on the audit committee, hopefully he responds, because we must thank the audit committee members because they were quite dedicated and turned up, or we zoomed in every time lately, and when you look at, if you read one of the statements here, in terms of cash and investments, Council maintains one of the healthiest cash and investment portfolios in the state, with an excess of 448 million in cash and investments. A lot of that is restricted, but everyone in this room should be very proud of what our staff have done since we were elected, when we were amalgamated, and I sat in that Risk and Audit Committee, and we just go, no, not this again, something else. So I said everything was cropping up. We knew nothing about it. So I really believe every councillor here has to appreciate the fact of what our staff have done since the election, the amalgamation. And hopefully everyone here puts it on their page or whatever, because it's brilliant and everyone should acknowledge that.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Any other speakers? Councillor Ibrahim.
I can't help myself, Mr. Mayor. Our financials needed a mammoth effort, and who else but Mr. Mamo? No one else can lead it but Mr. Mamo. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? If not, I'll put it. All in favour, say aye. Those against, no. Declare it carried. Minutes of the previous meeting held on the 13th of October. If someone can move that they be accepted. Moved by Councillor Najee, seconded by Councillor McDougall. Before I put it, anyone wants to speak on it? If not, I'll put it. All in favour, say aye. Those against, no. Declare it carried. Councillors, we're going to do presentations now. And there'll be two presentations here. The first one is for councillors. It was great sadness that I will ask Councillor Curry to present the certificate of the family of Len Harper. As welcome, and I'm also welcoming Len's children, Shannon Gray and Wade Harper, who are joining us tonight. Len was the mainstream of Botany Rams Junior Rugby League Club in Botany for over 40 years. Len loved the Botany Rams, and they loved him back. As volunteers go, there was no one as dedicated as Len was. He did everything for the canteen duty, coaching. He was the club secretary, eventually groundsman. He was also honoured as a life member. I'm also told that anything Len didn't know about the history of Botany Rams wasn't worth knowing. There is no local sport without local volunteers, and the best volunteers are like Len. They bring joy and happiness to the sport, encourage participation in an active, healthy lifestyle. The Botany Rams will miss his presence on Sunday mornings in his Botany Rams jacket and smile on his face. We thank and we honour Len for helping us build an active community in Botany. We extend our sympathies to his family and to the Botany Rams. If the family would like to come up, please. Councillor Curry. And Councillor Morrissey, if any councillors want to come up.
Just want to acknowledge Mayor Sedling's contribution over decades, and that's what community is all about, and we're greatly missed by the community. I want to acknowledge his tremendous service, and thank you tonight.
So we're not going to get the middle minute at all? No, she's not here. Thank you.
Mum was a product of Bayside. Basically grew up in Mascot, played for Mascot Rugby League. I joined Botany and started, and when the Botany Rams were formed, he drew the first ram for their logo. And he didn't really think about it that much, but he just enjoyed it. Even though I've been there for 40 years, and he'd still be there if he felt for me. But we thank you for recognising.
Thank you. Thank you. The next councillor is the certificate of recognition is to Cooper Fenton. I would like to acknowledge who won the 2001 Sydney Eastern Suburbs Volunteer of the Year. Cooper is an active and engaged member of the Sydney Children's Hospital Network Youth Council while managing their own chronic health conditions in school. She has advocated for patients to be treated as people, not problems, by healthcare services designed for young children and the benefit transfer service from Children's Hospital for Order Hospitals. Cooper has led the project to connect the siblings of young people with health needs and young carers that will support their well-being. I'd like to ask Councillor Curry and Councillor Morris if they could please come up.
People, on behalf of our community, we just want to acknowledge the amazing contributions. Fantastic young woman. One day you're going to be sitting around this table, I'm sure. So congratulations. Very much.
Thank you. Well, we're in breach of the order. All right. Cooper, well done. That's okay. Councillors, we have 2 mirror minutes tonight. The first one, I'd like to call upon a very good friend, Mr. Ron Honing, member for Heffron. Our local member would like to say a few words on the mirror minute for the late Deputy Mayor David Jory.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to thank the Council for honouring the service of David Jory at tonight's Council meeting. The Council itself is a fitting place to honour the service of somebody who served as the Deputy Mayor of the City of Botany Bay and served as a councillor, firstly at Botany Municipal Council from 1983 right through to his retirement from the council in 1995, which was then the City of Botany Bay. Now, David Jory and I were very close friends. We met when we were 12 years old, attending J.J. Carl Memorial High School at Mascot. David came from a family that was certainly anything but a wealthy family. His mother and father lived in the house in which his mother was born in Sutherland Street, Mascot. And she worked as a part-time at Chater's Shoes, selling shoes at Botany Road, Mascot. And his father was an employed plumber. I didn't realise you don't realise growing up what somebody's circumstances are until you think back and realise that David, who's just a little older than me by about 5 months, they never had a telephone until he was in his early 20s because they couldn't afford a phone. All of us had a phone other than David's family growing up. And when it takes a while to realise the state, the circumstances in which they lived. His mother, Lil Jory, who's known to me as Auntie Lil, and his father, uncle, known to me as Uncle Reg, were like a second family to me. Lil spent her time, from what little means that they had, generously preparing food and taking it to older people within the community. I mean, for a family, the family who had nothing and whatever they had, they gave to others. I always didn't realise at the time, but as I think back and as you get into public office, do you understand why is it those with the least give so much? And that was the family in which David came from. When and we were close right almost through to the end. He was the best man at my wedding. My youngest son was the page boy at his wedding. And he was certainly somebody I'd turned to in 1983 as we had just, Botany Council had just become a mayor by popular vote election, and I was looking for a renewal of councillors or then aldermen, and I was looking for somebody that was a Mascot identity that was well known, that could give that sort of laconic Aussie advice to somebody who came from then regarded as an ethnic family. And so I turned to David and asked him to run, and he was easily elected. It helped, of course, that his family was such identities in the Mascot area. And David served on the council until an illness that he was diagnosed with in 1995 really compelled him to no longer be able to serve. And he served with distinction and dedication, and was always somebody who stood up and fought for the Mascot community that he represented. And if he didn't get into your ear, his mother certainly did, or his father certainly did, or his younger brother. There are two really significant things that stand out in my mind for David's achievement, issues that I'll never forget. The first relates to something that the old Rockdale Council was involved in, and one of my mentors, Ron Rathbone. Ron Rathbone was a leading campaigner in relation to Sydney Airport issues, and it was Ron who managed to bring together the mayors around Botany Bay and the area in relation to the airport. But he knew that the only way in which you could really do with a national government over a particular issue was to create a national organisation of mayors. So the Australian Mayoral Aviation Council was Ron Rathbone's and Rockdale Council's idea. But Ron, being what he was, is he knew that to have this organisation be successful, Gary Punch had just been elected to the federal parliament, that he knew that it needed to be a Labor mayor that was able to convince the then newly elected Hawke government to the views that the council had around this area. And when Ron suggested me, I said no. Most people who know me know that if you get beyond my constituency, I don't have a great interest. But it was David Jory, at the urging of Ron Rathbone, that convinced me to get this organisation going. And it really had a significant impact. When you think about things like a noise exposure forecast, and planning nationally is based upon those noise exposure forecasts, came from that work. The noise insulation programs came from the work of that organisation. The rates that we now collect from airports for councils that have airports right around Australia came from the Australian Mayoral Aviation Council. It would never have happened had David not been Ron Rathbone's emissary and twisted my arm to get that organisation going. The second issue that really, and it reminded me when I was here last Sunday at St Catherine's Greek Orthodox Church at Mascot, they proposed to construct that church, and those proposals eventuated at a time of the birth of my youngest son, where for illness and a variety of reasons, I had taken some time off the council. And there was a huge community uproar by people about the Hyde of these Greeks building a church in Coward Street, Mascot, that was going to impact upon them. And the attacks of racism upon the Greek community I never saw or heard of before. And David faced the brunt of that, and he stared them down. I mean, it was quite bizarre to see, even then, World War II veterans who were lucky enough to survive after contributing to the very freedoms we enjoy, who should understand the nature of this multicultural society and the entitlements of people to develop a church, and who were members of churches of their own faith. And it was a pretty vicious attack by people who knew the Jory family well and pressured them. And this easygoing, laconic Australian just stood up and stared them in the eye. And every time and those attacks were within the local branches of the Labor Party. They were public attacks. They were attacks by the RSL, even by environmental movements at the time. Where he found the strength, in my absence, I found to be remarkable, and it is a testament to what people are able to do and the blows that they're able to take in interests of what's fair. David was diagnosed with an illness from 1995, the same illness that his younger brother was diagnosed with, which required his departure from the council, and also made things quite difficult for his family and for his wife and his stepdaughter, and ultimately found himself in a nursing home at an age too young to be at a nursing home. And one of my ultimate, I must say, Mr. Mayor, one of my ultimate regrets is that in relation to assisting him with that illness, I wasn't able to assist him in the way in which I wish I could have, or perhaps should have. But he was laid to rest in late September. Unfortunately, at a funeral that only permitted 10 people to attend, which is indeed unfortunate, as it has been unfortunate to so many families that have lost loved ones during COVID. But I didn't want his passing to go publicly to occur without an acknowledgement of his service, an acknowledgement of his very great contribution to what was the former Botany municipality and city of Botany Bay. And as I said at the outset, a council is an appropriate place to recognise his service and the service of his late family to the community. David John Jury, may you rest in peace.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you. Councillors, if I could have someone move that the Mirror Minute be adopted. By Councillor McDougall, second by Councillor Soon. I'll put it all in favour, so aye. Those against no, declare it carried. Councillors, the next Mirror Minute is in relation to Bayside Lockout of New South Wales Government West Invest Fund. That was distributed as a late item. Any speakers? Someone could move it. Yeah, moved by Councillor. Seconded by Councillor Morrissey. Any speakers? If not, I'll put it all in favour, say aye. Those against, declare it carried. Councillor, just need to, just for the record, I gave consent to the recording of our member, Mr. Haney's public forum. So normally the Mayor is the one that gives the consent. I gave consent. I should have acknowledged that and made that comment prior to him speaking, but we gave him consent to record that. It's Mirror Minute. Now, councillors, in relation to the business paper, I wanted to try and keep the thing rolling. So I'm going to do a procedural motion that if any councillors has any objection, please put the hand up. Otherwise, we'll take it as if it's granted. So if I could have someone move that we deal with as a procedural motion, the items in a bulk form. Moved by Councillor Nagy, seconded by Councillor Soon. I'll put it all in favour, so aye. Those against no, declare it carried. So I've abstained from, we won't deal with 8.2. There's a speaker on 8.5. There's a speaker on 8.6. There's a speaker on 8.9. The Bayside Traffic Committee minutes. I think there's a speaker. Is there, what was the declaration? What's the item on traffic?
21,
111, yep. Anyone else on traffic? Councillor Nagy? Oh, okay. All right. If well, at the moment, we're keeping in 8.2, 8.5, 8.6, 8.9 because there's speakers in the public forum. So we've got 9.2, which is the traffic committee. So we're pulling out 21.11. So if there's no others, if someone come. Yeah, no, we haven't got to that yet. Yeah. So I could have someone move that the traffic committee minutes be adopted with the exception of 21.11. Moved by Councillor Collegius, seconded by Councillor Nagy. Any speakers? If not, I'll put it all in favour. Aye, so it's concerned. 8.4, we can't deal with it. M6, Stage 1, potential recreation open space upgrades.
Sorry, just 21.110.
Oh, 21. 21,110. Okay. So we've got the M6 Stage 1 potential recreation open space upgrades. Has anyone got any objections to it? If not, I'll put it. All in favour, say aye. That's against no. Declare carried. PCYC lease update. No one's got any objections? Okay, 8.8, I'll abstain, I can't put that up. 8.10, the fire report, which is 619-629 Gardeners Road, Mascot. No one's got any drums. Okay, I'll put that one also. The smoke-free foreshore brief easy. Anyone?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
So is this only about smoking, or we're talking about barbecues? Because the barbecue thing gets slipped in point 3, but there's more talk about.
All right, Councillor Ibrahim, when we get to it, we'll talk. Yeah,
so we're not talking about
not
it now,
now.
are we?
We'll deal with it later. Yeah, yeah. We'll have that in. The event program review. If anyone got anyone that wants to pull out. Okay, I'll declare that carried. 813 is clause 4.6, the variations to development standards, quarterly report. Has anyone got any issues with that? If not, we'll take it as carried. The quarterly budget review statement, 2021 September. If not, we'll take it as carried. Code of meeting place. Let's take it as carried. Minutes of extraordinary risk and audit, 7th of October. And the minutes of the traffic committee, which is there 2 minutes on the 20th of October. I'll take that. Anyone got any items on that? If not, I therefore declare all those items carried as per the public document. Now we're on public forum. Members of the public who have applied to speak at the meeting are now invited to address the meeting. I remind you of the legislative constraints about referencing the elections in any way. We have 3 speakers tonight dealing with 8.2, 8.5, 8.6, 8.9, BCT 21.112 of item 9.2. Speakers are advised that the warning bell will sound when only 1 minute of speaking time remains. Speakers who are joining the meeting via Teams app are to have the video off and microphone muted until I invite you to speak. Speakers are removed from Teams once the item has concluded. You can watch the remainder of the meeting on Bayside Council's Facebook, YouTube page. You do not require a Facebook account to do so. For those speakers who are joining the meeting by phone, please the asterisk button and the number 6 on your phone keypad to mute and unmute your phone. Yeah. Pulled out, sorry, or no, there's a speaker on that. Sorry? There's a speaker on that, so that's why it'll be debated, yeah. Yeah. All right, so councillors, I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to come and chair this one. We have a speaker, Ms. Jan Riccardo, affected neighbour, but Councillor knows if you can. On the phone. We can't fit in.
Hello, good evening.
I think Colin's skinny up. With a skinny too.
What item is this one?
This is 8.2.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, councillors. Okay, we are on 8.2 and we have a public speaker on the phone, Miss Jan Riagliano, excuse the pronunciation. Is she on the line? Yeah, please go ahead.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, thank you.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Stavrinoski, Mayor, and fellow councillors. I'm just quickly calling, just to get straight to the point. We are wondering, there are many owners there, well, there are 5 lot owners there in Rockdale from number 21 Watkins Street to number 31 Watkins Street. that are wondering whether the government would be interested or would be interested in considering buying those lots. There's been talk between some of the owners, and we've noticed that on the LEP, the government has shown interest in buying the 2 lots on the corner of Ferrier Street on the hill, of corner of Ferrier and Watkin, on the hill opposite St. Joseph's Church in Rockdale, the school on the hill. Now, these lots that I'm talking about, 21 to 31 Watkin Street, are actually three
excuse
properties
me,
next door to
Public
that.
Speaker, we've got a point of order. What's your point of order, Councillor?
So we're dealing with
Simmons?
8.4, which is to deal with.
We're dealing with 8.2. Thank you. Continue. Sorry.
Okay. We're simply just wondering whether the question is this. Obviously, the government is interested in purchasing the 2 lots on the corner of Ferrier Street and Watkin Street. So they obviously got some idea they want to do something with it for public space. I'm not exactly sure what their intentions are, but a lot of us 4 or 5 owners of the 5 properties there, which are only three properties right near it, next door to it, on the same street, thought, well, maybe the government might want to buy more land. Like that, those lots are really, really attractive because they're 50 metres deep, they're massive. So something to consider. I mean, as we all know, Rockdale has a very serious parking problem. We thought maybe, that could be an answer for parking or even housing affordability. Maybe there is a boarding house on the corner there of Frederick Street at the lights. So that would be another, it's actually not 7 lots, it's only 5 houses there. That was my error because I only had 4 minutes to basically send something to you before the midday deadline. I realised it was like rushing, hurrying up trying to get it to you. It's only 5 properties there from 21 to 31 Watkin Street. And yet the government's looking at 3 properties next door to that. So we're just wondering. We're putting it to you to maybe put forth to the government. Are they interested in looking at those 5 properties, which are just directly opposite where, Walt Street, where everything in the LEP is regarding all those shops, all the way from the corner chemist all the way up the top of Walt Street precinct. Even Frederick Street, the other corner, the mosque and a couple of restaurants there and the Columnium Club there. Look, it's something to really look at because it could be an opportunity that the government might need more space, especially if some of those people don't sell that to them, the 2 lots that they want. We're saying, well, think about 3 next door to that. It's on the same street, same location. So, yeah, think about it and see what you come up with. That's basically why I'm calling you now regarding that. Have put in submission, of course, regarding, interest for Rockdale regarding Walt Street because being in this area for over half a century and I have a business 25 years here, I know all the property owners actually on the street. A lot of them are Lebanese Muslim and they trust me and they've asked me to write on their behalf, which I have. And I'm looking after everybody because I'm very passionate about Rockdale and seeing the city grow. I want this city. This is a city. And, I feel that we can do a lot more for this city than what we have been doing. So something to consider. Please put forth that's on the table. It's there. If they're interested, that's something that we probably would all be interested in as well. It's only 5 lots, it's only 5 homes.
You've got 1 minute to wrap up. Thank you, Ms. Rigliano.
I want to thank you all. Have a good evening and all look after yourselves and your families during this pandemic. That's all.
Thank you very much for
kindly.
addressing the council. Okay, as there are no more speakers on this item, we will now deal with this item. Okay, can I have a mover? We have an officer's recommendation. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Souness, seconded by councillor Abraham. Any speakers? No speakers. Okay, so can I just, all in favour say aye. Aye. So anyone against say no. I declare it carried. Thank you very much.
Good evening to you all. God bless you all. Thank you.
Councillors, since, okay, is the mayor coming back? Okay. Okay.
Thank you, councillor Naji. Okay. The next speaker we have one registered speaker on item 8.5. Mr. Garnett Brownbill. It's an interested resident speaking against the officer's recommendation. Garnett, if you'd like to please come up.
Cheers.
Yep, whenever you're ready, Garnett.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors. You were sent this email that I'm about to present to you at 6:17 p.m. If you'd like to see the tables and the associated material with that. At 6:17 p.m. you were sent this email. Mr. Mayor, councillors, thank you for this opportunity to present and discuss with you my thoughts regarding the funding strategy for Barton Park Recreational Precinct and the Botany Aquatic Centre, where I will be speaking against the officer's recommendations. Firstly, I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, sea and community. I pay my respects to them and their cultures and to their elders past and present. Going on to the report, as indicated within the Officer Michael Mummo's report, it is concerning to think that Bayside Council will utilise $72.8 million to fund these two projects. $72.8 million for two projects. The Barton Park Recreation Precinct and the Botany Aquatic Centre. To do so, Bayside Council will be required to redirect and allocate substantial funding resources and will be even required to loan $9.65 million to pay for these two upgrades. I'm more than aware that there is a need for upgrades and the dilapidation that has occurred at both of these councils' assets. There was a 76-page dilapidation report that Councillor Barlow, I'm sure, will remember from the Botany Aquatic Centre. However, it seems extremely excessive the sums of money required for these upgrades, especially with the knowledge of the following. Given the existing financial complications that exist at Bayside Council and the substantial downturn that has occurred in the past 12 months, something that I'll examine in more detail later, of even greater concern is the unknown financial implications due to COVID and the financial burdens derived from COVID that are very much unclear and only expected to worsen the current financial situation that exists today. Further to this, as detailed within the Auditor General's report presented tonight at the Bayside Council business paper, Bayside Council's operating results from continuing operations went from $47.5 million to $18.5 million. That's a $29 million decrease in 1 year. This equates to a $20 million loss or a 61.1% depreciation in one financial year alone, as indicated by the Auditor General's report in the table provided with the email sent to you at 6:17 p.m. Further to this, and as detailed within the Auditor General's report presented to, further to this and even more alarming, the net operating result, i.e. before capital grants and contributions, was $21 million lower than in the 2019 result. This is a 403.8% depreciation in one financial year alone. 403.8% depreciation. That's the Auditor General's information, her table. As can be seen within this table, in the financial year 2019 to 2020, Bayside Council had a net operating, so last year had a net operating result of 5.2 million. Concerningly, 12 months later, this figure was 15.8 million in the negative. This equates to losing $57,534 a day. Just to repeat that, in the last year, you're right, Councillor Morrissey? All right, all good. So this equates to losing $57,534 a day. Just to repeat that, in the last year, the previous 12 months, Bayside Council has operated a net loss of $57,543 a day. You're going to spend $72.8 million on 2 projects. These are the Auditor General's figures, not mine. This is Michael Mamo's figures, not mine. This is the information that's been presented to you tonight. Given that such a massive depreciation has occurred within the last 12 months, clearly there needs to be a greater understanding of the financial implications caused by investing so heavily in utilising council funds, developer contributions, reserves, restricted reserves, VPA and allocated funds that would clearly need to be utilised in other areas in an attempt to alleviate the impending financial burden as seen by the Auditor General. Interestingly, the City of Sydney, North Sydney Council and Inner West Council, along with other LGAs, are considering and putting in place restrictive funding strategies and looking at long-term financial plans that are being initiated now in the hope of future-proofing, last sentence, their communities in the desire to ensure that residents are not placed under excessive financial burden through the need for councils to increase rates in order to pay for poor decisions made today. It is hoped that the governing body of Bayside Council will reconsider this proposal and the officer's recommendation and thus ensure future generations are not financially burdened for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the officer's recommendation and I'll speak on that item. Okay. Mr. Mayor, just from the outset, I know it's not my ward and no Liberal is running, so there's no grandstanding here. When we go back to previous meetings where most of the councillors, the majority of the councillors, voted not to go ahead with the Botany Aquatic Centre. And I was one of the councillors that was leading the argument where I said that if there's no funding, it's irresponsible. From a corporate perspective and a business perspective, you don't go ahead. If there's no funding, you don't spend any money. Since then, Mr. Mayor, things have changed. And I did say in that meeting that if there is any funding, through you, Mr. Mamo, if you could find the money, I'd be the first councillor to put up my 2 hands. And that's hence why I'm moving this recommendation. Mr. Mayor, I just want to assure the community, and thank you again, Mr. Mamo, for having that report. You've done a great job. Now, the Botany Aquatic, it's a community facility, and nearly all councillors on this council are interested in community facilities, whether it's sporting fields, whether it's swimming centres, aquatic centres, whether it's cricket, whether it's basketball, whatever. I am a community-spirited person to make sure that the community receives the best from this council. Now, I just want to remind and go through it quickly. The total project, it's going to cost 41.7 million. Funding is about 13 million coming from the Section 7.11, which we do have. Okay, then that's of course 711, just for record, it's a developer's contribution. So that money is to be used for community facilities. We got 5 million will be coming from the S7.12 contribution. And 5 million, if we recall, from SACL funding. Now, on the previous meeting, we said, well, we've got the funding for SACL, let's do, because we have the funding, let's do the waterworks. And everyone thought, we're killing off the whole aquatic centre. But that's wrong, we weren't. We said when we get the funding, we will go ahead. And tonight, furthermore, 650 coming from internal reserves and 18 million from Bada 2 VPA. And that was the critical point, and that is coming, Mr. Mayor. So I have no hesitation to vote in favour of the aquatic centre, that now we have the funding, and thank you, Mr. Mamo, for putting this report through and telling us where all the money coming from, so the community will benefit. And there's no difference, east and west, we all one Bayside community. So that's why I got up today, Mr. Mayor, to put my hand up, and I will now or in the future, whether I'm re-elected or not, it doesn't matter. I will always fight for community facilities, community services, and that's what this council should be all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Najib. Any other speakers? Councillor Barlow?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like an explanation. Mr. Mamo might be able to explain some of the comments made, especially with the 15 million deficit from the last meeting. It was a paper deficit, it wasn't, because we do have the cash in the bank. So maybe it needs to be explained a little bit easier.
Michael?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the speaker's right in saying that there was an operating deficit excluding capital grants and contributions of 15.8 million. But what council is aware of is included in that figure was the fair value write down of a number of our building assets, which is equivalent to around $10.9 million. Now, that was because on amalgamation, council was established as an amalgamated entity, and there was no revaluation reserve for the building assets. So ordinarily, when that revaluation would go through, and if it was a decrement, it would have been taken up against the balance sheet, against a reserve held in the balance sheet. But because we didn't have that due to the amalgamation, it has to be taken up through the profit and loss. The other impact on the deficit is there is an increase in depreciation, which is a flow through from the revaluation of other assets such as roads, footpaths and open space assets. That was to the tune of about $3 million from the previous year. So when you start to exclude those non-cash items, council would have actually been just in a small surplus position. And for the most part, those items are one-off accounting treatments that have impacted on this year's financial statements and won't be reoccurring in future statements.
Thank you, Michael. Any other questions? If not, no, sorry, you can't. No. All right, Councillor Ibrahim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It just triggered the number 72.8 million. Seeing that this is the last meeting, it made me think about some of the other projects and the other tens and tens of millions that we managed to collectively get over the line in amazing projects. We're talking about the library, we're talking about the Angela Nestes Aquatic Centre, we have a youth centre, and I'm worried that I'm going to be missing others. And now there's another aquatic centre in Botany. We have these amazing sporting facilities that are coming up. I mean, it's extremely heartening to see that although this is our last meeting for the term, that this council has not stopped delivering from Rockdale days, and that didn't change when it came to a Botany and Rockdale together and becoming Bayside. Nothing had changed. We're still aggressively delivering. We're still aggressively trying to listen to the community and do what the community wants. And it's a proud moment, and it should be a proud moment for everybody to see that this is something that everybody here has helped deliver. So well done.
Thank you. Any other speakers? If not, Councillor Nudge, you have the right of reply. Okay, I'll put it all in favour, say aye. Those against no, declare it carried. So it's been carried as per the officer's recommendation. Next item is 8.9, which is the Riverine Park expression of interest for sporting partner. Janet?
Sorry, yep, thank you. You also sent an email basically giving you the same presentation provided here. This was at 6:36. Mr Mayor, sorry, come on. Mr Mayor, councillors, I wish to discuss with you my concerns regarding the Riverine expression of interest and the failure of Bayside Council to adequately assess the requirements of the Bayside Plan of Management for the community parkland and community consultation that has been required to be undertaken within that plan of management. This matter is currently being investigated by the Office of Local Government with clear concerns being raised. Councillors, attached below are links to a number of documents with the Rockdale POM, Bayside POM, which we are unsure as to which one we are using. Is it the Rockdale POM or is it the Bayside POM? Because they are two clearly different documents with very succinct changes within them. You'll also see there is a letter from Sue Hartley re the requirement of Bayside Council giving public notice to the proposal to amend or adopt a plan of management. Following is an excerpt from Sue Hartley's letter. Sue Hartley works for the Office of Local Government and has been referenced here to assist you and the relevant parties in their inquiries. Amending a plan of management requires giving public notice to the proposal to adopt an amending plan of management and provides the community to make submissions during the public notification process. Now, given that Bayside Council have proceeded with amendments at Riverine Park, fields 1, 2 and 3, without consulting the community, this is a concern and such is desired that the governing body, i.e. councillors, would investigate the processes utilised by Bayside Council, given the concerns that have been raised with the council's actions, to ensure that they have provided public notice and allowed the community to make submissions during this process. I look forward to hopefully hearing back from the governing body re this matter. Further to this, as can be seen below within the screenshot provided, the Bayside POM 26 indicates that the permitted purposes and scale and intensity of use or development for Riverine Park 1, 2 and 3 is not indicated within the Bayside POM 2016 due to the Cooks Cove Development SEP and the REP number 33 Cooks Cove. I'm sure you're all aware that the M6 project was going to utilising these fields, and as such they were not available for community consultation when the POM was written. However, due to technological advancements, the tunnelling machines no longer require this land, and as such it has been made available to council. Given this, it is desired that the governing body investigate the recent utilisation of these fields and the proposed works to upgrade these fields, as indicated within the 27th of September 2021 Sport and Recreation Committee Agenda Item 5.6 Greater Sydney Sports Facility Fund, without the provision of public notification with regards to the permitted purposes, without notification of the future uses, of the scale or of the intensity as indicated and required by the Bayside POM. This would be, or it appears to be in direct contradiction to clause 36 of the Local Government Act, hence why the OLG are concerned, i.e. preparation of draft plans of management for community lands 3A, little a, little b. Again, it is hoped that this will be investigated by the governing body of Bayside Council and a response provided addressing these concerns will be provided to the Bayside community. Apologies for the size of that graphic, however, utilising the Bayside POM, that's all you could basically have. And you'll see there that it is affected by the Cooks Cove Development SEP and clearly indicates that there are no future permitted purposes because the SEP is in place and there are no, or the scale, intensity of use and development also is impacted by the SEP. Community consultation was not available to these fields and as such has not been made available in breach of clause 36 of the Local Government Act. Thank you. If there's any questions, by all means.
Thank you, Garnet. Thank you. Councillors, we're on 8.9. Riverine Park expression of interest for sporting partner. Councillor Naji.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll move the officer's recommendation.
I'll second that, Mr Mayor. Second by Councillor Ibrahim. Any
Thank-
speakers? Thank you, councillor Najat. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Community elect representatives to make decisions on their behalf. And I've always been proud of that. And this council in particular, especially the Bayside since it's been formed, we have delivered so many community facilities, community projects that I'm so proud of. And I'm sure my fellow colleagues can speak for themselves, and I'm sure they're proud of it too. What we have in front of us tonight, we decided through GM briefings that we need to do something about Riverine. Riverine, formerly, if you know it, when I was a kid, and maybe Councillor the Mayor Saranovsky, he used to play there, I think, but it's always been a football field or a soccer field. Having said that, it's been just sitting there, not utilised much, except for maybe 3 and 4, where the local Banksia Tigers practice on that field, or training, I should say. Mr. Mayor, we thought we need to do something, so we went on an expression of interest to invite to create a sporting hub. We didn't specify just one particular sporting code or anything. We said that, you know, there's a growth. If we check our statistics in the past in Rockdale Council, the biggest youth growing is around Ward 2. Ward 2 has the biggest growth in youth. So we thought we need to cater for this youth. And guess what? We've received 4 submissions, and 3 of them, I mean, all in the expression of interest, we expressed that it should be sporting clubs or sporting organisations or any organisations, but they have to have grassroots locals, because we should be delivering to locals all across the board, locals. And we've received a great submission from Arncliffe Aurora Football Club, a great submission from the Cricket New South Wales, and a great submission from St George Rugby League. And guess what? In my opinion, we can cater for all of them. We've got field 1 and 2, field 3 and 4 already being utilised, and field 5 and 6 is not utilised. Can you imagine, councillors, through the Sport and Rec Committee, iron out everything and have recommendations that what this council believes should happen? Now, whether we can cater, and I'm sure we can, for all these sporting hubs, it'll be a great achievement. Having said that, Mr. Mayor, I can assure you, of course, it'll be a new council, so I don't know who's going to be re-elected. You'll have new councillors. I'm sure it will be bipartisan from all political fields except the Liberals. There won't be no Liberals. So, Mr. Mayor, I can assure you community consultation will be there at number 1, the priority, because we've always pushed for community consultation. Yeah, they might need to iron a few management plan, but that's up to the staff and the department of that particular department to iron out those issues and bring reports to us. We're not the experts in those fields, but we are the experts in looking at our community and knowing what we need to deliver, to this community. I, as a community elected representative, and I live in the area, Mr. Mayor, I know what this community needs. But we've got great submissions. For us not to go ahead and go out to tender and see what's to go will be a grave mistake. So thank you. I hope we'll get the support on it.
Thank you, councillor Najee. Any others? Councillor Ibrahim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to agree with everything that Councillor Najee just mentioned there, and echo a lot of these sentiments, because I'm sure Councillor Najee, same as myself, we've been approached time and time again throughout my tenure here since 2012 by the local sporting groups, where they were basically in disbelief, as in why aren't you making something out of Riverine? Why aren't you making sure that it's something that we can all use? And we all know that there's shortages, and we can definitely make use of a bit more sporting fields. So look, getting to that point where we're actually now doing something about activating that place, rejuvenating it, making it available for the community, again, is another proud moment. I mean, I know some of us will be here next term, some of us won't. I won't be here, but I would love for councillors to carry on this and actually make it happen, because I can tell you, I've had numerous discussions with a lot of people that want this, and look, I mean, I'm not sure what. There may be some few things to iron out, and there may be some devil in the detail, so to speak, and we need to work things out. But net, if we get to that point where we can actually use that and make it available, what a huge achievement that would be. So I'd love for everyone here to take that to next term and actually make it happen, because this is as big as creating an aquatic centre, and is as big as creating a library and any other community facility, because it's needed. It's an area that's available, and let's just make it happen. I know some teams were training there, and I got a few phone calls at one stage from a professional coach who was taking kids to train them there, and it just wasn't reasonable at times. He will use take them to a corner that picks a corner that's kind of okay to train on and use it. And then they'll call me and say, hey, mate, what's going on here? Why aren't you guys doing something? I wish I had a few $1 million to fix it myself. But look, reality is we need it. And I hope that everyone here carries on and actually makes it happen in the next term. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Souders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope that coach had permission to be there officially. Anyway, beyond that. So my question is to whoever looks after this matter does our motion tonight sit within the plan of management that's in place of this particular area?
General Manager.
Through the chair, councillors, we're not at liberty to speak about the Bayside Council plan of management. The plan of management is actually part of the evidence for the litigation that we are involved in, and regardless of the humour, I can only advise you that is not a conversation you would have on the public record at the moment. I'm happy to brief councillors about the Bayside Council plan of management for community land and about SHREP 33.
So my supplementary question, is it wise then to delay this until we can have a public conversation around this matter?
Through the chair, I would say to councillors that this matter would not have been brought to the council with the briefings that we've done over a period of time had there been concerns from the officers in relation to the planning framework that applies to Riverine Park.
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
just want to assist my fellow colleagues, and correct me if I'm wrong, the GM, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the GM. If this was out of order, it would not been up here before us, correct?
Basically, yes, through the chair, that is what I have I already identified, that it is here before you because you can consider this matter.
And the reason I asked, Mr. Mayor, is just so I can have some comfort around this. There's a lot of conversations going around. There's a lot of things that happen on other parks. We need to have a bit of clarity. My only issue is, like, I'm happy with Arncliffe and to take over the park or be involved in the park. I just want a bit more.
Councillor, as soon as you can't express their view, no one's got it. No one's.
No. Well, an entity taking over. An example of one particular organisation. Sorry, I'll be very less succinct. So what I want is, from my perspective, and I believe most of the councillors here, I'm all for community use of open space. I just don't want specific groups to take over specific parks and exclude the general community from using that park. So there's people that want to walk their dogs, there are people that want to do whatever they do on the parks. They want to go and have a run, go and have whatever. I don't want gated parks, big fences around them where people can't use them. Because, like I said, it's for everyone to use. I can understand the need to protect some certain playing fields by putting fences around, but I don't want the fences around there because I want people to be able to enjoy the park, to take their children, to kick a ball and so on. Now, we've got a lot of parks in the area. You'll say to me, well, why go to Riverine? Well, again, it's open space that we need to have available to the bulk of our community. And sorry if I picked on one in particular, just in front of me, and I'm happy that I can see a wide range of different sports being invited to participate, and that's terrific. But I don't want to close the door, put a 6 metre high fence around it like we've done elsewhere, and keep the general public out of our parks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Nanji? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, we are jumping the gun by thinking that we're going to have 6 metre fences and maybe they might think that we're going to have synthetic fields there. No. Okay, I know, but we are not jumping the gun. All we're asking to come back and see about the creation of a sporting hub for the community. And Mr. Mayor, what I've seen, I know it's a confidential session, what we have seen, the presentation, and what we're asking here to partner with council. And most of them, some more than others, have offered millions of dollars contribution. Now, we will give back to the community what they give contribution, Mr. Mayor. We need to revitalise this riverine. We need to create it. And of course, there will be community consultation. Now, you could have a new council that might say, no, we don't want this. But this is democracy, Mr. Mayor. We are all elected by our community to represent them and to make decisions on their behalf. And when we do, it goes to community consultations and it comes back to us. Then we decide whether you go ahead and you don't. That's how it works in council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Nanji. I'll put it. All those in favour say aye. Those against? I'll declare it unanimous. I declare it unanimous. Next item, Gunnet, is 9.2 of the Traffic Committee, BTC 21.112, which is in relation to temporary delegation to council office for work zones until March 2022.
Actually, I'd like to rectify that, please. It is actually to do with BTC 21.115, 15A Wallow Creek Road, Banksia, the 35-metre work zone. Were there any concerns? I know there was a councillor who did the BTC. Well, it was 10, wasn't it? 2110? 21.110?
Yeah, 21.110. Yeah. This is a different item.
Different item? Yeah, all good. Yeah, just didn't want to.
It's your item.
Yeah, okay. Mayor, councillors, I wish to discuss with you my concerns with regards to BTC 21.115, 15A Wallow Creek Road, Banksia, the 35-metre work zone, and the unsanctioned work zone that exists. Given the concerns and actions of Bayside Council and the public officials' actions that have been undertaken with this matter, it beggars belief that this has occurred and clearly needs to be investigated further, given the implications derived and the reputational damage that has occurred. Upon reviewing the business papers and the minutes of the Bayside Traffic Committee and the Bayside Council meeting business papers and minutes, it is apparent that the relevant documentation as statutorily required and stipulated by the Bayside Council and the Roads Act 1993 in its consideration and assessment for the proposed work zones, none of this has been provided to the Bayside Traffic Committee. It is concerning to think that Bayside Council have delegated approval to a work zone, 15A Wallow Creek Road, yet failed to have been provided by the applicant, Polytan Asia Pacific Pty Ltd, the statutory required documentation relevant to its approval that would be presented to the Bayside Traffic Committee and all of the other subsequent parties. Of even greater concern is the implication that this provides and creates for other parties pertinent to the Bayside Traffic Committee, being the Eastern Police Area Command, the St George Police Area Command, State Member for Cogra, State Members for Rockdale and Heffron, and Transport New South Wales, to name but a few. And given the concerns that I've raised with these parties, this correspondence and discussed with the members of these parties, this is something they have sought to have had clarified as well. This is especially the case given that with the knowledge that is indicated within the correspondence received from the St George Police Area Command attached, that the work zone 15A Wallow Creek Road is unsanctioned since the 31st of March 2021. I disbelieve that, in fact, because that was only through delegated approval given to the General Manager at the December Bayside Traffic Committee meeting, yet it was also a requirement to be provided to the police, which they don't have within that delegation. You will see in the email attached below the statement made from Senior Constable Andrew Chu concerning the unsanctioned work zone. Moreover, it is extremely perplexing to learn that Bayside Council has provided an unsanctioned work zone to an applicant undertaking works for Bayside Council, and the financial benefits provided or offered or profiteered to the applicant throughout the period of time that the work zone has been established is of further concern. As detailed by New South Wales ICAC, the New South Wales community expects public officials to perform their duties with honesty and in the best interests of the public. Corrupt conduct by public officials involves a breach of public trust that can lead to inequity, wasted resources of public money, and reputational damage. This being the case, given the work zone signage installed at 15A Wallow Creek Road since mid-January, whereby the signage was an A4 piece of paper put inside a laminated sheet, sticky taped to a telegraph pole, and that has remained in place since Bayside Council have been informed of the unsanctioned work zone by members of the community and the Cogra Police Station. It has still remained there. The signs are still currently in place. It is only further proof of the irregular and seemingly illegal actions continuing to be utilised by Bayside Council and the financial benefits being offered to the applicant that are indicative of corrupt behaviour as detailed by New South Wales ICAC, whereby a public official improperly uses or tries to improperly use the knowledge, power or resources of their position for personal gain or the advantage of others. As clearly evident, senior management and public officials within Bayside Council are and continue to improperly use the knowledge, power and resources of their position for personal gain or advantage of others, given that the unsanctioned work zone signage has remained in place with Council's knowledge. As such, I would think that this is something of utmost concern for the governing body of Bayside Council. Continuing on, upon reviewing the minutes of the Bayside Traffic Committee meeting minutes, 20th of October, so the last Bayside Traffic Committee meeting, it is clear the officer's report further generates concerns given that as stated within the officer's report, it indicates that the amended work zone is to be operational from the 1st of October through to 29th of December. How do you backdate a work zone? This being the case, the work zone has been backdated to the 1st of October. You cannot do that. It is statutorily unacceptable to have a backdated work zone. Clearly, this is not the case and would again indicate a substantial lack of understanding of the statutory requirements of permitting and approving work zones. And as such, the proposed work zone will need to be returned, thank you, I'm finishing up, to the Bayside Traffic Committee with the dates applied for correctly stated and indicated as dates into the future and not retrospective. How could it possibly be the case, given the circumstances that have occurred thus far and would only further indicate the improper exercising of public officials' functions and the financial benefits that have been offered or profiteered to the applicant, Polytown Asia Pacific, Pty, through the period of time the work zone has been established? As such, this matter will be referred to the relevant government agencies as well to investigate further. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Souness?
Maybe we have a DeLorean, we can go back in time. Anyway, I'm not happy with the officer's recommendation up there. I don't like, and I've said it a million times, I don't like post-dated stuff. It starts now, fair enough, I understand it. With the discretion of the Mayor, can I ask a question of the Speaker? Mr. Fausto, am I allowed to ask a question of the Speaker under the Code of Conduct? I'd like to ask the Speaker, did he have a vehicle parked within that work zone at any time while it was a work zone or otherwise?
I did personally not have a car parked in that work zone. It is not my personal car.
Okay, because you told me at one point, sorry, I'm through the Mayor, you told me at one stage it was someone who parked the car, got on a plane, went to India, his parents contracted COVID, passed away, and he passed away too. Is that correct?
I cannot confirm that, but yes, that has been the information
okay.
I've been provided, yes.
All right, just for the record, because I was a bit confused when you told me that. Okay, so Mr. Mayor, we stand before us in front of this particular item. I'm happy to move it as everyone else is here. Maybe we can date it closer to today, to the 29th of December. Happy to do that if everyone else is happy with that.
Have to go back to the Bayside Traffic Committee. Statutorily required. The police have to sign off on it. Have to go back to the Bayside Traffic Committee. That's what I think.
Not necessarily, because all we're doing is just compressing the dates, because they've got concurrence anyway. The police are happy with what I understand. The roads are happy with it. Well, that's my understanding. Can we get one of the directors to tell us if they know any more?
Mr. Barber?
Through Mr. Mayor, there was no debate or dissent at Traffic Committee from my recollection of it. And so you can assume those parties were happy with it. And as you said, the date would just be changed to shorten the period of time. So I wouldn't see an issue with that.
And from what I understand in the past, when I was on the Traffic Committee in a previous life, if there is a dissent, then the dissent comes directly from the police and it squashes this particular item and comes back to the Traffic Committee and then goes to a regional Traffic Committee if there's an issue with any changes that we've made on the floor of council. That's how I understand it from previous experience. So if we can change the date till 4th of November, I don't know if that impacts us in a different way, but it's what it is. Today's 4th of November till the 29th of December. It's in place. Prior to that, for all intents and purposes, I understand it was a work zone and needed to be a work zone to carry out the works. If there's something that was missed materially because of administration or otherwise, I can't speak for that. I really can't speak for that. If it's a case of impropriety, then there's obviously other recourses, other directions to take that matter and express it.
To the police 33 times. Sorry, but I'm just informing
No.
members of the committee council, 33 times the applicant has complained saying it's a work zone.
Okay.
Not once was that brought up?
Yeah, we got,
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, so if there are issues, there's other authorities that can deal with that issue, the police and so on. We're just focusing on this particular item now.
Do I have a seconder for that, for Councillor Souness's? Yeah, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Robertson.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor,
Dorothy, seconder.
just through you, Mr. Mayor, would it be possible to have some sort of comment on the signage that the Speaker has referred to and what the state of the signage will be?
Could you call on Louise Farrell? Louise Farrell is online.
Louise Farrell, you're online?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. The question from Councillor Abasadi was, in terms of the sign.
Through you,
Quality.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we will investigate the quality of the sign and have a new work zone sign installed with the dates as per the resolution from this evening.
Yep. Okay. Is that satisfied, Dorothy?
This might be a question for enforcement, but if the sign did end up previously being the laminated A4 page, is someone able to comment on whether or not that's enforceable?
Why? All right. We'll just see what Dorothy, we'll just see what time.
It's not laminated.
All right. No. All right.
Louise's comment is the relevant one, but we'll have a look at it.
All right, I'll have a look at it tomorrow. Yeah. In accordance with whatever we normally do. Yeah. All right. Any other speakers? If not, I'll put it all in favour. So aye. Those against no, declare it carried in terms of what was moved by Councillor Souness. Garnett, thank you. Good job. By the way, none of us got the emails. Garnett, well, I didn't get an email. Oh. Okay, we're now on back to speaker for 8.6, 72 Laycock Street, Bexley North, order of HEPA. .6, 72 Laycock Street. Yeah, there is, yeah. Have we got the speaker on
Teams?
Mr. Diomedes, Secretary of the Order of HEPA.
Yes, I'm online. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor, Council staff, good evening. As the Secretary of the Order of HEPA New South Wales Incorporated, thank you for the opportunity to address Council very briefly again this evening. Between 17 September and 22 October 2021, Order of HEPA New South Wales Incorporated conducted a special resolution by postal vote regarding the Bexley Bowling Club project. The results were formally announced by the returning officer on Sunday the 24th of October 2021. Special resolution was carried by 79.14%, being more than that required by the association's constitution. HEPA New South Wales Incorporated now looks forward to working with Bayside Council in moving the project forward quickly and efficiently. We also express our sincere thanks to Bayside Council in enabling the association to galvanise its vision of a better future for our members and the local community. Members of HEPA New South Wales Incorporated, thank you for your efforts and for your time.
Councillor Collegius.
Mr. Mayor, if the speaker's complete, I'm assuming he is. I'd like to move that we deliberate on this item in a confidential session on the basis that we can freely discuss some sensitive legal and commercial matters. Thank you. If someone would like to second.
All right. The second on Councillor McDougall. Anyone got any objections? Yeah. Councillor Nudge.
So, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Look, I don't know what the legal issue is. I thought we've been briefed on all legal issues leading up to this, and for the sake of transparency, and it's a community facility that has been going on for 5.5 years, that I think this council needs to be open and transparent, discussing everything in public, because it's becoming a serious issue. Now, I have...
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. At this moment, we should only be debating I've moved the motion to go into a confidential session. We shouldn't be actually debating the item itself. That's the whole point of me suggesting we go into a confidential session.
Sorry.
So if we're going to start debating the matter, it defeats the whole point of going into a confidential session. So if Councillor Nagy opposes it, we go to a vote, and it's up to the council whether we go confidential or not.
Let's go to a vote. Mr. Mayor, no problems with that. I'm just highlighting why I believe it shouldn't go to confidential session on the basis of open transparency for community. I'm not debating. The debate will come later. So that's my grounds, Mr. Mayor. I don't think it should. We should be in an open session, open and transparent, and that's what it's there. Nothing to hide. Thank you.
All right. Well, this one will be dealt with at the end of the meeting in a confidential session, and then it'll come back to council at the council meeting. So I'll put it all. Can we put it for vote now? Because otherwise we deal with it now. No, well, there's other items on the agenda. So. No, it's not. It hasn't been moved. It's only been moved in second. That's it. Was to move to go into confidential session. That's how I was about to put it. Yeah. And then we'll come back to. Then we'll go back at the end. Yeah. All right. I'll put it all in favour. Councillor McDougall.
Can I just speak very briefly? I don't think anyone's trying to hide anything. The resolution will go to the public. But ultimately, we are in receipt of privileged legal documents from two parties, and I think we need to be able to discuss these regarding this matter.
Yep. All right. Yeah.
There's no problems. I know, I'm not suggesting anyone is trying to hide anything. I'm talking about perception from the community to council. Now, if that is the case, is the council aware of these legal issues? Why hasn't it been presented to councillors? So we are aware of it before. But that's fine. I mean, I'm more than happy. If we want to go to confidential session, there's no problem. Just for the sake of perception.
Yep. All right. I'll put it. All in favour, say aye. Those against? I declare it carried. I do. Okay. As the division been called for, this matter will be referred to at the end of the meeting in a confidential session, and at the end of the confidential session, it will be brought back to council tonight. So all in favour of that motion, please raise your right hand. We've got Councillor McDougall, we've got Councillor McDonald, we've got Councillor Beswick, Councillor Collegius, Councillor Basardi, we've got Councillor Morrissey, Councillor...
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, we forgot about you, Paul. I forgot about you. Okay, so we got... Okay. Councillor Sedrak and myself. Those against? Councillor Souness, Councillor Barlow, Councillor Souness, Councillor Najib, Councillor Ibrahim. I declare it carried. Those that are watching this on Facebook, all we're doing is deferring it to the end of the meeting in a confidential session, and it will come back for debate at the end of the meeting. So carried. Next item, councillors, is we're on BTC, the Traffic Committee, which is 21.1110. Councillor Ibrahim, you moved that item to be pulled out. Oh. 110. Oh, you're 110. So you're okay. You get. Okay. Well, Councillor Ibrahim, it's your call. So yours, Scott, is 110. Yeah, 116. Oh, okay. So, yeah. It's moved by Councillor Najib. Do I have a seconder? I'll second it. If there's any speakers? If not, I'll put it all in favour, say aye. Those against, no. Declare it carried. If we can ask Councillor Ibrahim to come back. Councillor Morrissey, we're on now your one, which is 21.1110.
Administrator, sorry, it's a bit fast moving. I think I just want to move to defer this until we get to further community consultation here. This may be in the new term of council. Pemberton Street is high density. It is parking is at a premium. There was parking removed recently from the next block, and that caused a whole lot of community concern that we're still working through at the moment. So I'm moving with Councillor Curry that we defer this. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any speakers? If not, I'll put it all in favour, say aye. Those against, no. Declare it carried. Yeah. Did we get Councillor Curry and yeah? Yes. Okay. I'll declare it carried. Okay. Next item is the draft plan proposal. Councillor McDonald. Not to. 8.4.
Okay, councillors, we're on item 8.4, the draft planning proposal 146 to 154 O'Riordan Street, Mascot. Do I have a mover? Councillor Collegius, and Second by councillor Besic. Councillor Kaligas, do you want to speak? No, councillor Besic. Any other speakers? Councillor Morrissey.
Thank you, councillor. This is a planning proposal, and I might just want to clarify. I think the proponent here is in the media quite a lot right at the moment, it's something that's quite contentious across the community, and hasn't been supported by council in the past. This is they have a DA approval that was approved outside of council for 2 7-storey buildings and 2 6-storey buildings, 94 hotel rooms and 457 service departments. We're looking at a doubling in the height from 22 metres to 44 metres. It's not the height limit with that site at the moment is only 22 metres. This is 44. It has gone backwards and forwards. It overlooks Max Scott Oval. There's quite, again, a lot of community concerns around the privacy of Mascot Oval with people looking there. It has come back to council, I acknowledge, and they have got like a tiered development proposal now where it's going to be set back. And I do acknowledge that that's been changed. However, the fact is it's still going to be overlooking that. There's a lot of R3 residential close by. Again, I think a lot of people forget the fact that although O'Riordan Street is a commercial area, it does adjoin residential on the other side of that. On the 9th of December, it's in the report, which I'm sure everybody's read. On the 9th of December, council considered a post-exhibition report and resolved not to proceed with the plan. So now it's back. I do not support this proposal. It's, again, an overdevelopment of the site, and I would encourage my fellow councillors to knock this down because, again, it's overdevelopment, it's inappropriate, and should not be supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Is there any other speakers? Councillor Rapasati.
The last time this was debated post-exhibition, I had to conflict out as I lived very close to the development at the time. I've since moved. But largely, the council, having considered a very similar proposal to this before, means that the political appetite for this planning proposal wasn't demonstrated at that time. It doesn't feel like there would be much change in political appetite. If there is planning merit, there are still other avenues that the applicant can take, be it through court. So I will be opposing this at this time.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Rapasati. Is there any other speakers? Councillor Besic. Okay, councillors, thank you. We don't have a seconder. We have a seconder for this item.
If the people objecting, I just want to know, are you going to make another recommendation? That's all. It's in limbo. You either don't accept it or...
I can move a motion that this be not forwarded to sorry?
I might just refer that. Do we have a?
Yeah, we need a recommendation.
Yeah.
Someone on the line to go.
So if we can have a suggested wordings then.
Do we? Is this this is lapsing? So this is lapsing.
Yeah, it's collapsed.
For want of a seconder.
Yep.
So, Councillor Morrissey, you can now put up your alternate motion.
The council rejects the planning proposal for the land at 146 to 154 O'Riordan Street and does not forward it to the Department of Planning and Industry for a gateway determination.
Councillor Barlow seconded.
So could I just add, considers the recommendations of the Bayside Local Planning Panel of the 21st of September and then you're working. So you've actually done the next step in the process.
Well, it's acknowledging the planning panel, but that, yep, that's okay.
Is that right?
So you are considering a recommendation and yes, yes. So
we're
you've
acknowledging
considered
it, but
yeah.
then we're saying.
Yep.
So you've given that consideration, and now you've made a
Yeah,
determination
okay.
to reject it.
Councillor Morrissey, would you like to speak to that?
Can
now?
I just ask?
Yes, Councillor Abraham.
So went to the planning panel, came to us. Now we're saying, no, we don't agree, go away. Does it go away? Or through the chair, my understanding is they can, it's effectively, it means nothing what we say, because that can still go ahead anyway. It will go ahead without input from us, or will go ahead with input from us if we make some changes. Yeah. So we can say go away. It will go ahead, and they will still go ahead and do what they want to do. Is that not the right assumption here?
Thank you, Councillor Abraham. I might get the Director of City Futures to comment on that.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, yes, the proponent does have the ability to request a review of the Gateway decision or Council's decision not to send it to Gateway. So that would be carried out by the Department of Planning, and they can overrule that decision and let it proceed to Gateway and to exhibition.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. So it goes to the Department of Planning.
Yep.
And then they will decide whether to send it or not, which would be yes, but
they
it's
could
the
decide
Department
to,
of Planning next.
Yep, they could. So the applicant would need to make that request.
Right.
It's not an automatic part in the process. If they choose to do that, the department would basically step in council's shoes and review the same information, and they might decide to agree with council and it goes no further, or they could change that decision and allow it to go to exhibition.
Thank you. Have we got any other speakers? This will be by division, councillors. Yeah,
We're
by
rejecting
division.
it, but do we have to give a reason why, or we just saying we don't want to do it? The density is now, that's what I mean, should there be a reason why we?
Why we're rejecting it.
Director of City Futures.
Double this height, so, but it needs to be in there a reason why we reject.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I don't believe there's a requirement for council to give a reason, but it's for transparency. I would recommend that would be a good thing to do. It could be something as simple as you think it's overdevelopment of the site or something like that.
I'm happy for some suggestions.
Excessive overshadowing of the open space.
Okay, so there is. Yeah, it's not compliant. Because it's a doubling of the existing height restrictions from 22 to 44 metres. It adjoins an R3 residential zone. It overlooks Mascot Oval or Lionel Bowen. Is it Lionel Bowen Park? Yep.
And low-rise residential to the east.
Adjoins a low-rise residential zone. No. And is not in the best interest of the community.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. We might just wait till we get that wording. Councillor Souness.
Mr. Assistant Mayor, is that right? Assistant Deputy Chair. Can I ask just a couple of questions through you? So let me just get my head around this. The officers are putting up a recommendation. Is that correct? The recommendation is for so many criteria. It's gone to the planning panel, and the planning panel have concurred with it. So it meets the DCP, it meets the LEP guidelines. Can I just ask that question?
Through you, Chair. So yeah, the process is that the council officers do their assessment. That then goes to the Bayside Local Planning Panel for their input. And that's correct. That both the staff report and the local planning panel's recommendation are that it should be supported. That assessment is done against a whole bunch of criteria that the Department of Planning puts out. There's ministerial directions that we assess it against, which is all covered in the report. We look at strategic merit against all of the broader planning framework, and then site-specific merit dealing the more localised impacts. So that's the framework that's been used to do the assessment. And the council officers and the local planning panel felt that it met those criteria.
So it ticked, sorry. So it ticked the boxes. And I'm just comparing it to a boarding house at 15 Wallow Creek Street the other day, where it met all the things. It met all the guidelines. We as a community could not overturn it. We as a council, it couldn't come to our council for us to overturn it, which in days gone by, we would have, because there was no planning panel. Now there's a planning panel in place. If we overturn this now and say, no, go away, it's ticked all the boxes, where does the applicant go now? And don't get me wrong, I support totally what the councillors have said over here in terms of height and bulk, because we did hear all this at an information session, I think it was last Wednesday night, and I totally agree. I hate this style of overdevelopment. But this opportunity of us overturning these things has been taken away from us and given to the planning panel, and the planning panel is suggesting that we move forward with this. So is that a conflict for us? Is that a problem for us? And then I've got another question after that.
Through you, Chair, there's no conflict for you. So the planning panel at this stage provides advice to council to help you make a decision which you're making tonight. So from there, the proponent does have the opportunity to request that the Department of Planning review your decision, that it not proceed to Gateway. They would essentially do the same assessment that the officers have done and the planning panel has done. They'd run through the same criteria and see whether they agree or not. If they agree, then they could give it the okay to go on public exhibition, and then it would come back to council most likely, or they could decide to agree with council's decision and it would go no further.
Okay, so it's more or less a redundant exercise for what we're doing now. That's what I see. Now, I'm not asking you to answer that question, but I see that happening here because our powers have been taken away from us pretty much, and we'll put it on public record. So in the new council, maybe the state government will change that and allow councillors who have been duly elected by the community to make decisions on these matters. The other question I had, it's just one fine detail, is the height. The proposal is excessive in height. Can I just be reminded what the allowance is or what the LEP allows there and where we've gone to? And is that a breach or not a breach, or is that an exaggeration of what's there at the moment?
Through you, Chair. So the current height limit on the site under the LEP is 22 metres. And so this planning proposal is to alter the LEP to allow 44 metres on the western half of the site.
So how do we, or not we, I should say, how do the officers come by that assumption that, yes, that increase is permissible?
Through you, Chair. So, yeah, there's basically a bunch of criteria that we have to use to assess the proposal against. That includes looking at the context. So the other sites along the street, some of which have been developed, do have a 44-metre height limit on them, and so that was part of the rationale for increasing it on the part of this site that fronts O'Riordan Street, and to have a lower height limit on the part that fronts the residential area.
So more or less it becomes an arbitrary decision on the officers, because I see that we spend a lot of time creating an LEP which says this is zone R2, this is zone R3, this is zone R4, different colours on the map, yet someone comes along and says, the one down the road is pink, but the one over here is not pink. Let's make it pink because it's close to pink. Is that really what's happening here? It's just totally confusing. Why do we have an LEP then, which is gazetted, which is out there for the people to work with, and yet we've got someone who comes and says, I've got 22 metres here, which I'm allowed to do, but the bloke down there, he's got 45. I want 45 too. Why can't I have it? And then we've got someone in an office that ticks that box and says, go for it. And yet the community has pretty much no say. And that's what's burning me up here in this particular instance. Can we have an answer to that one?
Through you, Chair. The LEPs do tend to be fairly broad brush, and you're right, land is coloured, different colours and different controls are applied. And sometimes in time, we find that we don't always get it right, or there might be a better outcome. Probably the other important factor to mention with this site is that the floor space control that's in the LEP at the moment and the height control are somewhat mismatched. So there is a DA approved on the site at the moment that complies with the height limit, but it only realises something like 2/3 of the floor space that's allowed on that site. So part of the applicant's argument is that if the height limit's increased on half of the site, they can then actually achieve the floor space control that's already in place. So they're not asking for more floor space, they just want to realise what they have by going taller on the western part of the site. So there was a mismatch there in the controls.
Thank you. Councillor Curry.
I'll let Councillor Curry speak because I'm lost.
Thank you, Councillor Tsounis. So just to, if I can get this right too, so we've just gazetted a new LEP and within 3 months we've decided we can double the height and the FSR on a site, and that is a tick off that planning staff determine is appropriate, and then goes to a planning panel. I think I'm with you today. How can
Last meeting.
Order.
Everyone's gone crazy.
It absolutely makes no sense. This site is next to a heritage listed park. It's next to low-rise residential. Where in any tick box exercise would that constitute doubling of the height? It is ludicrous, and it's a new LEP regardless of FSR mismatch. I mean, these things should not be going forward on a new LEP as approval to a planning panel in the first place. It's so yeah, I just can't. I'm not supporting it. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and I think there's got to be a stronger approach to how these are assessed.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Is there any other speakers? All right, Councillor Ibrahim.
Just a question through the chair. We're talking about height. Through the chair, are there other developments around or next door or adjoining that have the 44-metre heights, or are they all in a 20? Australia Square. So we don't have anything that kind of goes anywhere near that height.
Director City Futures.
Thank you, Chair. There's actually an extract from the LEP height map. It's page 154 in the business paper, and you can see the site outlined there in red. So all of the sites on the other side of the road and further south are the same colour on that map, which indicates that they have the same height limit, and that's 44 metres. So there are other sites and other buildings of that height nearby.
So across the road we have 44-metre height?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, sorry, not to contradict.
Councillor Curry.
Can I?
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Not to contradict, but across the road is not. You've got a heritage park, and then you've got warehousing across the road. You've got warehousing next door. It may be red on the map, but that's actually not built yet. So it's not existing there.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Is there any other speakers? All right, so just before... Councillor Tsounis.
Did I press it, Mr. Assistant Chair? So the question is, on the back of the councillor's request, so the 40, how close is the next 44-metre high building that's actually built, not a colour on a map?
Through your chair, I couldn't. I don't know the heights of all the buildings that are completed on there, so I couldn't answer that without checking. All I've referred you to is the height limit map in the LEP.
Because we're allowing a development. Look, I'm not against the people developing things. I've just got concern with certain height things that are certain height of buildings when they occur and overshadow a lot of other things, especially a community park. But if there's no precedent, how can we create a precedent when it's assumed that maybe one day there'll be a precedent? In terms of across the road, one day there'll be 44-metre high buildings, and yet on the other side of the road, which wasn't investigated during the LEP, which is totally ignored for not just our LEP, but obviously the Botany LEP, because we adopted part of that and we modified our LEP to suit what the current conditions are. We didn't have that on the map. Now, that suggests that can be 44 metres. So the lot behind it and the lot next to it can be 44 metres too, with that logic. So we're creating a difficult situation for our community. We're creating monstrous buildings on lots that shouldn't be there because we haven't done our investigation. We've seen a standalone lot, and we're saying, okay, the applicants come to us and said, I want 44 metres, I want this, I want that, and I want that. Someone's ticked the boxes and said, okay, this is what we're doing. And here we are. So I don't understand. Again, I don't understand it. It's just mind-boggling for me. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, this is by division. Councillor Morrissey, is the wording okay now?
Yes.
Okay, by division, I'm going to call each councillor. Councillor Curry. Councillor Morrissey. And remotely, Councillor Sedrak.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, what was those last two?
Councillor Sedrak.
Sorry, I didn't hear the previous votes.
We're on item 8.4.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't hear what the previous.
So it's the officer's recommendation's been changed. Do you have that wording?
I can't see it. Say that wording again, Mr.
Voted for.
I'll go for as well then.
Thank you, Councillor Sedrak. Councillor Ibrahim. Councillor Rapasadi. Councillor Kaligas. Councillor DeSunis. Councillor Bessick. Councillor Barlow. And myself also for. So I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. I will ask the Mayor to come back into the chamber, and Councillor Naji. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Councillor Naji, you'll have to chair this next item. 8.8, proposed licence for Rockdale City Suns, Rockdale Limited.
That's the last one. What is it, 8.8? Okay. Thank you, councillors. Are we up to 8.8? Is that correct? Councillors, we have 8.8, a proposed licence to Rockdale Innington Soccer Club Incorporated over Brighton Memorial Playing Fields, 43 Crawford Road, Brighton Les Sands. I have a recommendation. Anyone wants to move it? Moved by Councillor McDougall, seconded by Councillor Bezic. Any speakers? No? Okay. Sorry, Councillor Barlow, are you? No comments? Okay, thank you.
Just to the side.
Is that a division? No, is it? No. Okay, councillors, all in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? I declare it carried. Thank you. Can we call the Mayor back in? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 8.11, which is the smoke-free foreshore Breathe Easy. Councillor Souness.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a terrific initiative. It's only a, sorry, my papers in order, I'm still last one. It's only a trial, but I think a worthwhile trial. We need to limit the amount of smoking around our community. Maybe you need a seconder first before I speak. Do you want to do that, Mr. Mayor, first?
Yeah, do I have a seconder?
James.
Councillor Barlow.
Yep. Everyone's in favour. Okay. It's a trial that we need to be vigilant on. I know we can't find people, but at least we'll get some messaging out there. We'll get signage out there. We'll get every opportunity we can to deliver the message to the community that lives here and the community that visits us that we do not want smoking in amongst children in particular, where they play, where they enjoy the beach, and other people that are using the foreshore, the walkways and so on. And I believe in the long run, this should be extended to other sporting fields where there are children. Children can't say no. If someone walks past them with a cigarette, they cannot say, take that away from us. Us as adults can say, I don't want smoking near me. If we ban it from our public parks, with signage, we can create an opportunity to keep members in our community much healthier than what they are now if we move that smoking away from us. I noticed one of the items on the back is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to do with, I can't find it now, it's to do with our open dining, our dining areas, our external dining areas. Is that correct, Director? So that's something that needs to be rolled out as people renew their licences, I guess, and actually apply for outdoor dining permits. So that'll be another good thing that we can actively control. So I thank the council officers for putting this together. It's fantastic. The signage needs to come up as soon as possible, and we, for want of a better word, that our former council will say, well, let's try and nip it in the bud. He couldn't wait for that. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the director for promoting this particular item.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Ibrahim.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor. Is this only about smoking, or because I'm seeing the newly designated barbecue areas are signposted? Is this just about adding signposts to already designated areas, or is it just smoking, as in smoke?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is about the charcoal barbecues as well, because they create a lot of smoke, and it is very difficult to keep one lot of smoke out of a zone when you've got billowing smoke coming from a barbecue area. What we've done over the last 2 years is trial the charcoal barbecues in zones, and that has worked particularly well as part of the Summer Foreshore program. We've had no issues with the community at all being asked to move into one of the zones where the charcoal barbecues are allowed. And we're talking in this proposal of extending that number of zones. So we'll have 5 charcoal zones where you can smoke, or you can have your charcoal barbecue as well. And these zones will also feature the bin enclosures where you can tip the hot coals. One of the issues we have experienced on the foreshore is burns on people's feet from the hot coals being left in the sand. So it's actually, as Councillor Souness mentioned, it's a trial for a 12-month period. During that trial period, we develop a policy which will enable us to make it more permanent should council choose to do so following community consultation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the director now touched upon that. I wasn't clear on that when I read it. I did go through it, and I can see the barbecue symbol. But what's the criteria around, just so we can refresh our memories, because some time ago, around charcoal barbecues? How high off the ground must you have? Well, what's the criteria? How high off the ground? How far from people? Just so we can be clear on that, and then I'll ask another question if you don't mind.
I would like to defer to my manager, Phoebe McHale, Manager of Compliance, who's online at the moment. She has the detail of all of this for you. Phoebe?
So traditionally, there are standard barbecues that they carry, and they're standards that they sell, and so they're portable charcoal barbecues that they use, and they're set to an Australian standard, and they're off the ground, and that's what they use on the foreshore. So what the survey that our rangers did last summer, that they found that people use them, and they use them well. And but the only problem that we found is that they just didn't dispose of the coals in an appropriate manner. And when the ranger spoke to them, so we did an educational process during the summer where we spoke to people where they used them in the exclusion zones. We said to them, oh, look, can you hurry up and finish because you're in an exclusion zone and you need to put it away. They listened and they put them away. And then when they found them across the foreshore, we guided them to where the charcoal bins were, and they put them away. So people are generally compliant, but it's just more of an educational process. The barbecues themselves aren't the problem, it's just the smoke that they generate. And it's all about the education that we want to get out there with the community.
So I don't understand who the they are, but
it's the general community.
Okay, I thought maybe it was a manufacturer of the barbecue. Anyway, no. How high off the ground though is it permissible? Because I know for a fact that this was a big issue about 4 years ago. It has to be a metre or 1.2 metres off the ground. I don't know. It can't be sitting right on the ground where a lot of people drag out their little barbecue out of their boot and put it on the ground. Now, it is a big issue because it burns the ground and then they just tip the coals where they are. Now, should the barbecue only be within a certain distance from a coal bin? Otherwise, the coals will not ever end up in the coal bin. Is that what we're thinking, Director? So I'll just answer to both, one from Vivi and one from yourself, if you can.
Yes, absolutely. We're locating the barbecues in the vicinity of the bin enclosures for disposal of the coals. I can't comment on the height of the barbecues, but we can take that on notice and come back to you with that information.
Okay, so the height of the distance from the coal bin is what, 5, 10 metres, 100 metres? How do people know where they can actually do an open barbecue? And I speak from experience, being down there in summer all the time. How far can people actually light their fire from this bin? Because the chances are, if they're over here and the bin's over there, they're not going to, the coals will end up there. They'll end up under a tap, and then it just contaminates the pathway and goes everywhere, that charcoal stuff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, during our summer foreshore program, which is when the barbecues are mainly in use, we have our rangers out in force and our summer foreshore ambassadors. And as Phoebe mentioned, we're looking at undertaking an educational program. So we'll have signage in multicultural languages and flyers in languages as well, so that we can communicate the location of the bins. We have done this in the past where the current zones exist, and we found it to be extremely effective.
Thank you, Director. But you didn't answer the question. So how close to the bin? Because everywhere where there's one of those cabanas we've built, I can tell you there's charcoal next to it, because people park their car, wheel out their barbecue, do their barbecue, drop the coals and leave. There's not that many bins in the charcoal bins. Maybe the Director of City Presentation is just shaking his head. There aren't many. There's only a handful on the beachfront, and we're talking about the beachfront, which is a particular problem for us in summer. There's only so many. So if we're communicating with the people, what are we telling them? What are we putting on our flyers?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're proposing to install new charcoal bins in the location of these zones that have been determined. There isn't a particular measurement, but within the vicinity is the guide that I would give you. And any coal that goes in a bin is better than none.
So how big was the work zone?
Let me have my piece, all right? So here's the problem, right? This decision to create this problem about barbecues, this goes back to the previous term. It was a decision that was a wrong decision and only went through because it was politically motivated. Let me give you some background on that, right? The idea here is not about whether the smell of a nice meat on a barbecue is bad or not, because there are 4 lanes of traffic generating fumes, right, that would smell a lot worse than that. This is not the problem. This whole thing started in Little Grand Parade. Let me take you back to the Little Grand Parade story. We all remember, just in case, so people can remember where this came from. This is all about Little Grand Parade, nothing else. Is this the story time? This is the story time. Please have your coffee and sit down, because I'm here to tell a story, because I've had enough of this absolute rubbish. And yes, so here's the problem, right? So we have a stretch of parks that go across all along. It's, what is it, 8-kilometre beachfront. I'll call it 8 because I like to exaggerate. So it's 8-kilometre stretch, right? This thing started from Little Grand Parade. Politics played a role, and then some people decided, hey, let's make it across the whole waterfront, right? Not because it was a problem, but because someone can, and they did. So that's the background. The background is not about smoke from the barbecues is bad or anything like that. It's not that. It was politically motivated. It was a wrong decision from day one. And we looked at how else can we make it work, because we all know we can't enforce it. We all know that rangers will go there and ask somebody for their ID, and they can't ask for an ID, and I don't have to provide them my ID. We all know that. All it did is create problems for council officers in dealing with something that was done wrong from day one. So you, as directors, are dealing with a problem that shouldn't be there to begin with. And you know what? You have to make it up as you go, because holy crap, what do we do, right? And we did talk in one of the information sessions back in the day. It was called information session, not general manager's briefing. And we spoke about disposal of coal because that was a problem. And we spoke about different options in terms of getting rectangular ones where someone can go dump it in. And we looked at all that. And we thought, wouldn't it be better to make it easier for people to get this coal and actually dispose of this coal, as opposed to say, no one can have barbecues, right? Because let's face it, I'm privileged. I have a house, I have an awesome backyard, and I have barbecues at home. And I had one this weekend, right? Not everyone has that. There are people that live in units.
When's the next one?
There are people that live in units, and I got called by a number of people when this decision came out, abusing me, and I was the one opposing it, right? Because they said, where are we going to go? And I don't know, go and talk to these guys. It's not me, right? But the reality is it was a wrong decision now, and we've been scrambling to deal with it for years now, because this council made the wrong decision. Let's not keep this wrong decision going on for much longer, right? Instead of saying we're not going to have barbecues and the smoke is bad, because that's not where it came from, right? Let's just say the beach is there, the park is there for people to enjoy. Let's make it easier for people to enjoy. That's our job. Our job is to fix that problem. If there's coal being dumped somewhere, it's our problem. We need to make sure that people are doing the right thing, and we need to give them the facilities to do that. But just going in there and say, hey, we're gonna ban barbecues because someone at Little Grand Parade doesn't like the smell of barbecues. I get it. Little Grand Parade is a small strip, and there's a big park, and people used to go across the road from them, and they used to light up barbecues. I get that. But why are we making it across the 8-kilometre stretch? It makes absolutely no sense. So instead of scrambling to fix a problem that shouldn't be there, let's just put a plan of management. Acknowledge there's a problem maybe with coal and coal disposal. Well, let's fix that. That's the problem. Why are we denying people access to that beach? People want to go there and have picnics. I don't understand this. I will never vote for this. And I didn't like, I would have voted for this motion if it was only for smokes, as in smoking. But then I saw the barbecue there inserted. I'm like, oh, here we go again. It gave me the chance to have my last word before I finish, but this is wrong. And I'd love for this to stay as is and have something in there. I don't want to cause a problem right now, but have something in there that doesn't include barbecues and doesn't treat barbecues as smoking as cigarettes. These are barbecues. These are barbecues, mate. It's not cigarettes. We'll put them in the same bucket.
Mr. Mayor, I want to take you to the 1970s where Paul Hogan promoted the Australian barbie, Mr. Mayor. Let's have a barbecue. Okay, I agree with Councillor Councillor Ibrahim. When I drive past the Grand Parade and people are having barbecues, I love the smell. It makes me hungry. I go home and I start my own barbecue. Mr. Mayor, if it's to do with smoking, cigarettes, yes, we should promote that smoke-free zones for the sake of people's health and lungs. But a barbie, it's the Australian way, having a barbie. Who doesn't have a barbecue? Now, I think really we should look, this council should look at, which we thought we came up with a great idea where we can have special bins that are specially for charcoal to empty them. So we should look at how this council could strategically around the 8 kilometre put up those bins where people can have barbecue. Now let me tell you, and I'm sure most councillors have, especially the Fifth Ward councillors, driving on a weekend on a good day, there's no room. There's no room to really, you get people, residents, whether from the area or outside the area, keep looking for a place to see where they can sit and have their barbecue. I mean, it's a great atmosphere. The Aussie way, Paul Hogan, have a barbie, okay? And I hope they do the shrimp because I love prawns on the barbecue. But Mr. Mayor, we should, as this council, go around and see where we can strategically, and that's what we should be aiming than just banning a lot more smoke. I mean, it's true, Councillor, and I'm not going to repeat what he says, that you have more emission from cars around the Grand Parade that is much more harmful. Cigarettes are much more harmful than the smell of meat. Ooh, coming up in the air. I love it, Mr. Mayor. That's probably the reason I'm overweight. Thank you.
Councillor Collegius.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think in defence of the actions of the previous council, I think it's worth revisiting. It's worth revisiting the events at the time and I guess directionally why we went the way we did. From my recollection is we never had put forward a outright ban across the entire area. It was specific to the Little Grand Parade, particularly areas that were in close vicinity with households, and the houses were being impacted. So I think, to be fair, I think we have struck the right balance here in allowing it within those zones. And as per the director's feedback, we don't seem to be having any issues with that arrangement. So I don't think anyone has ever advocated for an outright ban across the board. To control it in areas that won't affect local residents, for me, makes complete sense. So I'm happy to support this.
I have a clarification on that because I was quite certain that it was we eventually put a ban across the whole foreshore. Through the chair.
Gentleman.
No, the ban wasn't across the whole of the foreshore through the mayor. It was, as was noted earlier, Little Grand Parade. It was around Peter de Pina, where you have the houses that back onto Cook Park. There were exclusion zones created wherever it was close to a playground or a residential property. Yep.
Was it 30 metres from or 10 metres from the playground?
I think it was 30 metres. I think that was correct, and it may have been at least the same or more from the residential properties.
Thank you. So through the chair, that basically takes out Peter de Pina, and if you go up to the new playground that we just introduced, that takes out this whole area because 30 meters that way, 30 meters that way. The thing is, and there's always places for families. That's the whole idea, is for families to go and enjoy themselves. There's always somewhere. Yes, then we have some pockets where if you see, so the rule of thumb is if you see a playground, keep driving. Which is basically then we have between the car parks, because then you have the car parks, just in between the car parks is allowed. Is that right?
In between the car parks at Kaima, do you mean? Oh. Because those areas are not adjoining residential properties, yes, that's correct. They are allowed there.
Okay. Any other speakers? Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, toss a shrimp on a barbie in a designated area. No, look, I have no problem with barbecuing. I think the original smoke-free zone, which actually started south of the Little Grand Parade, that was just for cigarettes and went down to Brighton. It was a couple of 100 metres, which I proposed. I think that's been a great success. There are still plenty of places to smoke on the beach. But it does create an area for anybody who has, say, respiratory issues or anything like that. They have somewhere they can go at the beach and feel comfortable. This was subsequently extended in Councillor Souness's motion to include barbecues as well. Look, I don't think we should ban barbecuing in any way on the beach, but there are a couple of areas now where it's restricted. I don't think they're onerous. If you go down to Peter de Pina Reserve, there are plenty of people barbecuing. There's a lot of room there. Well, no, not illegally. They're not, they can either stay away from the playground or stay away from the residential houses, and most people do. It is just to create that buffer zone and to create an area where if you do have lung issues, I love the smell of charcoal barbecue, but, so for some people that is an issue and they should have places to enjoy along our foreshore as well. So I'm happy to support the motion.
Councillor Souness? No, right one. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favour say aye. Those against? I declare it carried. Okay, we now need to go into confidential session. Yep, I believe so, yep. Yeah. Yeah. Laycock Street, Bexley North. If I could have someone move a motion. Okay. It's moved by Councillor McDougall, seconded by Councillor Collegius.
Number 6 should go back.
Oh. All right, councillors, there's been a mover and a seconder. Any discussion? If not, do you have anything to say? Okay, I'll put it. Yep, all in favour. There's been a division call. All those in favour of the motion that's been moved, please raise your right hand. Okay, we've got this Councillor Curry, Councillor Morrissey, Councillor Rapmasadi, Councillor Collegius. Councillor Cedric, are you online?
Yes, I am, yes.
For or against?
For.
For. Councillor Besic, Councillor McDonald, Councillor McDougall, and myself. Those against? Councillor Ibrahim, Councillor Naji, Councillor Sunis, and Councillor Barlow.
This is a huge mistake, Mr. Mayor.
All right. I therefore declare the motion that's been moved as carried. Being no other items, ladies and gentlemen, councillors, this meeting closes at 10:51. Thank you for those who are interested in these items. Thank you. Good night.